A Native American monstrosity, the Wendigo, would hunt its prey in the forests, capturing them and devouring their flesh. The embodiment of gluttony and greed, it is never satisfied after killing and consuming one person and thus always on the hunt for new victims. Cursed to wander the lands of eternity with only one thought on its mind: fulfill its uncontrollable appetite for human flesh or else face death to starvation. This is Pantheon mythology, and this is the Wendigo. Just quickly before we begin, if you love yourself some mythology and folklore, then head over to Pantheon Apparel. You'll find designs inspired by deities, beasts, and legends from across the mythos. We're rated excellent on Trustpilot and ship worldwide. Link in the description. During the harsh and brutally cold winters in North America, tribesmen and settlers would often find themselves lost in the bitter snows and ice of the woods. Many would lose their lives, and those that didn't would find themselves suffering from intense hunger. Stranded for days, with hope of survival fading rapidly, the most desperate would resort to cannibalism. From this, those that committed the most awful of sins transformed into hideous man-eating beasts with an insatiable thirst for more. This is, as legend says, the origin of the Wendigo. Basil H. Johnston, author of Legends of the Nahanni Valley, described the Wendigo as gaunt to the point of emaciation, its desiccated skin pulled tightly over its bones, with its bones pushing out over its skin, its complexion the ash grey of death, and its eyes pushed back deep into the sockets. The Wendigo looked like a gaunt skeleton, recently disinterred from the grave. What lips it had were tattered and bloody, unclean and suffering from suppurations of the flesh. The Wendigo gave off a strange and eerie odour of decay and decomposition, of death and corruption. It's fair to say, personal hygiene nor appearance was a priority. Considered a near-perfect hunter, the Wendigo is said to be a specialist in stealth, able to move at incredible speeds despite the harsh winter conditions. It was also thought to be able to control the weather through dark magic, hiding the sun, leading those in the woods to get lost in the darkness. Most notably of all, however, was the Wendigo's ability to mimic the voices of other humans, an incredible skill to have when seeking out its next victim. Replicating the voices of friends and family, the Wendigo would lure unknowing folk into isolation, guaranteeing its next meal. It wasn't a fussy eater either, providing it was human on the menu. Men, women, and, unfortunately, children were all considered fair game. Some recounts of the Wendigo mention how the beast was able to possess others, thus turning the poor individual into a monster where it, too, would suffer from the unquenchable hunger. An example of this possession can be linked back to a documented case from 1878, when a man named Swift Runner suffered from what is known as Wendigo psychosis. This, as a modern-day term, is when an individual suffers from intense cravings for human flesh. It is a syndrome that coincidentally occurs within people living around the lakes of Canada and North America, where the Wendigo is said to roam. Swift Runner, then, was one of these cases. During the winter of 1878 to 1879, the Cree Native American and his family found themselves caught in the cold in the forest. After a period of time, his eldest son would tragically die of starvation. In order to avoid the same fate, Swift Runner would eat the corpse before murdering and consuming the remainder of his family, totaling 5 children. Surviving the winter, he emerged from the forest alone, looking in good health. The community were understandably suspicious, and he would confess to the unforgivable acts he committed, citing possession from the evil spirit of the Wendigo as his defense. Despite this, Swift Runner was sentenced to death, and hanged for his actions in 1879. Despite its fearsome reputation, there are individuals who dare to confront the Wendigo head-on, challenging the beast in its own domain. Hunters and trappers venture deep into the heart of the forest, armed with rifles and courage, determined to end the creature's reign of terror once and for all. Among them was Jack Fiddler, a Cree Indian renowned for his claim of having slain 14 Wendigos during his lifetime. However, Jack Fiddler's exploits took a darker turn when he and his son Joseph were brought to trial for the murder of a woman believed to be possessed by a Wendigo spirit on October 7, 1907. Both men pleaded guilty, explaining that the unfortunate woman was on the verge of completing the transformation into a Wendigo. They claimed that killing her with silver bullets was necessary to prevent her from turning on the tribe. Needless to say, the judge and jury viewed the notion of the woman's alleged possession with skepticism. Ultimately, the Wendigo proves to be exceedingly resilient, almost impossible to vanquish, and inevitably consumes its chosen prey. Its haunting cry reverberates across the landscape for miles, freezing the blood of all who hear it. Encountering the Wendigo is a perilous affair, with little hope of survival. Regardless of your beliefs of Wendigo folklore, this legend has been closely associated with tangible human vices and sins, such as greed, selfishness, and violence. Through the ages, the Wendigo has served as a symbolic representation of these darker aspects of human nature, manifesting in tales of individuals driven to extreme acts by their insatiable desires. The concept of the Wendigo as a symbol for human folly and moral degradation is deeply rooted in folklore's cultural and historical context. It serves as a cautionary tale, warning against the dangers of unchecked greed and the consequences of succumbing to selfish impulses. The Wendigo's insatiable appetite for human flesh mirrors the voraciousness of human greed, which knows no bounds and can ultimately lead to destruction. Moreover, the legend of the Wendigo has been interpreted as a reflection of societal taboos and the consequences of violating cultural norms. In many Native American communities, cannibalism, which is central to the Wendigo legend, was considered a grave taboo and violation of the natural order. By portraying those who engage in cannibalistic acts as being transformed into monstrous Wendigos, the folklore reinforces the idea that such behaviors lead to spiritual corruption and moral decay. In this light, the notion of being possessed by the Wendigo can be seen as a metaphor for the grip that greed and selfishness can have on individuals, driving them to commit heinous acts that betray their humanity. It highlights the tragic reality that, in our world, many individuals fall prey to their own inner demons, succumbing to self-destructive tendencies and becoming consumed by their desires. Ultimately, the association of the Wendigo legend with real-world sins serves as a sobering reminder of the darker aspects of human nature and the importance of resisting temptation and maintaining moral integrity. It prompts us to reflect on our own actions and choices, reminding us of the consequences of yielding to our most base instincts.